Dan, anything you want to direct them to on the challenge opportunities or anything that we've discussed so far?
No, I don't think so. I mean, we run through the priorities and it's just a matter of filling it out.
All right, so now what we move into, what I think is fun, and you're going to get into a rhythm with this, and you're going to say potentially, we're forming, a lot of, unofficial teams with maybe, one board member that would, kind of, be a touch point with those teams type of thing, or whatever, it might be a complete board piece, whatever, however you set it all up. But we have already begun to, again, pre-populate based upon, Dan was in there working with some of the challenges and opportunities, and again, the 6-year goals that you sent us. So if you want to share that document, Dan, put that up here. So basically, and again, it's small right now, we just wanted to see the layout. So basically, you can see that it's got maybe a category, and you can change the categories. These are arbitrary, but you're going to see colors that link them. So the red would be what we might put under a title of marketing and student enrollment growth. So it might be underneath that title. It might be a different title. You may change it completely. We may get rid of some of this. But again, a lot of this is verbiage that you gave to us, okay? Based upon, again, the 6-year targets that were sent to us. And then Dan added some things from Challenge and Opportunities Today. And then we have some standard general operation type things like the strategic human resource management. If you want to keep it, great. If you don't, great. It's up to you. It's your plan. But those are kind of standard things that we just see across the board. So, and we'll start getting into these line by line and things like that. But just want to see the layout. So you've got some kind of category that kind of links it, groups it. Then you've got where do we want to be in 6 years. So I'll show this. I'll read that. It's pretty small, but which is fine. Okay, if you can all read it. The last group we worked with, we had one woman sitting in the way back farthest corner, and just kept saying that she couldn't see it. I'm like, you move up front. No, she was where she was. So we made it like huge, 700 fonts. But with that in mind, so you start with that 6 years. So again, and here's what was shared. So somebody shared, and Skylar, this is to the point I made earlier today when you were saying this. Somebody shared that their 6-year dream for the school is that LCCA will be the premier school of its kind in the region and the vanguard of a new age of education. It's awesome. You're going to say, that sounds pretty global. How are we going to measure that? You're right. That is pretty global. That is. But what you're going to develop, if you leave this here, some of these other things are going to help develop the measurements that you're looking for or the standards that you're trying to achieve to at least prove to yourselves that we've achieved this goal. Does that make sense, Steve? Mm-hmm. So today's not the day we're going to say, well, here are the 10 parameters that show us as the regional school or whatever it might be. What today would be, is in 1 year we have developed the 10 parameters that will help us to see when we've reached and become the premier school. Still making sense? Mm-hmm. All right. So again, I'm not telling you have to keep that, but that was shared. So again, some of the other things that come into here, then, so if that's where we're going to be in 6 years, then again, where do we want to be in 3 years? That's where we're going to be in 3 years, 1 year, 90 days. Does the format make sense, everyone? Yes. All right. So now, Dan, if you would go down to the, I think I put it under finances. So I think the green. So someone had put in as a goal, and it showed up in your challenges and opportunities as least as a segment. So I'm just going to walk you through what something can look like. So somebody had talked about having an endowment. Do you currently have an endowment of any kind?
No.
Okay, so somebody put in an endowment, and it was one of the segments of one of the challenges and opportunities this morning of having fundraising plus an endowment. Okay, so if you really are serious about having an endowment, this is really what it looks like. So I've helped many schools work through a process of establishing an endowment, and this is basically what it looks like. You start. I'm not saying that 2.5 million is your goal after 6 years. It could be 100 million. It could be billion. I don't care. Whatever you think is a goal that stretches you. So you have some kind of financial goal out here at 6 years. So again, I just want to show you what this looks like. 63190. I'm not telling you have to keep this again. Keep that in mind. But so again, if you were to say endowment, here's what you could have. Fully established endowment with a $2.5 million base in 6 years. Well, then where do we need to be in 3 years? Full, and it should we have a Y there. I mistyped that, so if you want to add a Y, Dan. But fully established endowment with a $1 million base in 3 years. Now, with endowments, what they do is they grow quicker as you get them. So again, you never want to say, you can't just break it in incrementally. So if you said you want a $10 million in 6 years, it's not, it never works $5 million in 3 years. It just doesn't work that way. It grows quicker the larger it gets, of course, which mathematically makes some sense and people get excited, etc. That's the research behind it. But then if you're going to really be serious about endowment, then what you need in 1 year is you need your IPS. So have any of you ever worked with an IPS, investment policy statement? Okay, so Skylar, others, okay. So again, you need to establish what is going to be your investment policy statement, and that would be established in 1 year with whoever's going to be potentially a partner advisor. You can do it on your own. There are sample ones out there. But again, if you find a financial advisor partner, then that helps establish it. So now you've got this IPS that helps you to, again, attract donors to it, because donors don't want to give to an endowment if you don't have some kind of clear investment policy statement. And then what you'd want to do in 90 days would be to establish the endowment donor expansion team. Now the endowment donor expansion team would work on some of these other pieces, but they would be linked in this area. Does that, you understand the flow of that?
Yep.
Okay, and so that's what we want to do with anything you want. And we're going to always say less is more. Less is more. So you do not want, and I think Ellen earlier said, our 2 to 3 goals. If you had 2 to 3 kind of goals, that would be unbelievable, quite honestly. That would be the shortest goal plan I've ever seen, which is not a bad thing.
I like conciseness.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. But again, whatever it is, less is more. So there's a lot of big dreams and things like that, but and again, the other piece that you want to keep in mind, and Randy and I have talked about this, and we can talk deeper about this, is the idea of then, and keep this very much in mind, the board should be responsible for board level things. And the operational team should be responsible for operational level. So as we get into this, we've got to try to kind of keep clear what is really operational, what is really board. So again, one of the things you don't want in here is the board will evaluate, all curriculum choices ever made by any teacher in the school. Well, that's operational. That's why you've got the principal, that's why you've got, directors of instruction, whatever levels you've got. Does that make sense too? We just want to keep that line of demarcation, which is not always easy. And have any of you been here since the founding board? So not the board members.
As board members, no.
No, I just mean just board members. Okay, so the founding board was very different, and it's just a transitional piece with that. And again, I'm happy. There's another piece in here we talked about good board governance. I'm happy to talk through that too. But if you want a good, simple, and I think I maybe showed you this, a good, simple book on board governance and development, super simple, super clear. And I've shared it with Randy before, but it's something too we can help you through. But it's just maximizing board effectiveness. That boards have lifespans. That there's the founding, which is very much a working board, hands-on. They got to be in there. They're signing all the documents. They're doing all these things. And then the time period that you're kind of in, you're in a very transitional time period, quite honestly, when it just comes to years. Four-ish years, 3, 4, 5 years is where that board really now becomes more of a governing type of policy board, where you're maintaining policies, all those things. And we have 4 categories. I'll talk about that later, but just keep that in mind. Does that make sense, everyone? Any questions, comments on anything on the setup or the design or any of these pieces? So then I'm super linear. So we're just going to go back to the top, and we're just going to start working from the top down. And you can, again, today is not the day to wordsmith. So again, it's that we have the concept in there. We're not going to debate, should it be an and or a with or a however, or should we have a semicolon, a colon? That's not what this document's for. Nor is this, again, when it says form a team to work on this, today's not the day to pick the team. But today is, when you get to the 90-day, there's going to be an individual owner for each one of the 90-day goals. The owner of a 90-day goal does not have to do the whole thing, but they have to make sure that it gets done. Good there, team? All right. So we go back up to the top, and we just, like I said, we just arbitrarily have some standard categories that seem to fit for everyone. But again, if you have marketing, student enrollment, growth, that's where we put this 6-year comment. So let's just talk about that. So one of you sent to us this piece, and I guarantee you, it was your language. I didn't do any tweaking to it because those are not words I use. So those are like way smarter words than me. So that was a 6-year goal. So if you're gonna market outreach, the goal, how I would view it, if you're gonna do marketing outreach and grow enrollment, do all these things, it's because we wanna be the greatest school in the whole world. That's what it says there. So talk about that. Is that a 6-year target you want? Is that something that you're striving towards?
Obviously, yes, I mean,
Does anyone not want that?
yeah, it's like,
I'm not, I mean,
let's level set.
I like the first part until the comma.
And I would actually push back a little bit, like, is that the driving force between what we're doing here for recognition? Or is that just a natural outcome when other things are done well? Is that a strategic goal for regional recognition?
I think it needs to be measured.
How?
Multiple outcomes. So, like the,
Premier school of our kind, premier school, how are you gonna compare us to like a STEM school or
a STEM school, I
Or
argue,
charter.
is not the same as a classical
tied to the
school.
region?
So, there's the classical education test, for example, would be one way, potentially. Graduating outcomes would be another, potentially. I mean, it's not the end-all, be-all goal of LCCA. That's not, but I think it's not inconsistent with our mission.
I feel like it's like you said, Margaret, it's sort of a byproduct of doing all the other things right. Like, the thing I like about it is, I think we want to be the best we can be, not settle for pretty good. We want to be great. And that's sort of another way to say, being the best you can be and not necessarily, modeling ourselves after another school and saying, this is the Hillsdale average, so let's stay with the Hillsdale average. Let's try and be the best we can be. So especially that first part of the sentence, I view it as another way to say, let's be the best we can be. And if we do that, we're going to be recognized as a top school. And I know we need some objective measurements, but I think you kind of know when you're there too. Like, you probably know the top Hillsdale schools in the systems and the system, the ones with the best reputation, the ones people go to for advice. Model some of their policies after. No.
Sure, I mean, the ones that, when I need advice and they direct me to someone, I'm assuming those are the ones that the Hillsdale team considers to do whatever it is, XYZ, they do that well, so they send us there, send me there.
Maybe just because my wife works there, I hear about the schools that are recognized as the top schools.
So
Yeah,
do we want to be recognized by Hillsdale or the community, or both, like, both? There's like, so the premier school is broad, right? We want to be premier school among
Of its
the
kind.
community.
So I think I put this down, but at least the first part. I don't think the second part, because I don't typically use the word vanguard in my vocabulary, which is generally pretty limited. But and I think, though, when I was thinking about putting this down, it was more so for like a mindset for us.
Yeah.
Like thinking about, because when I think about it, I do think the national, especially because U.S. education is in the toilet and has been for a long time, but even on a global stage, I think it's a very questionable thing today. Like, what is education supposed to be, and what makes for good education, and like how do you get there? I think there are lots of thoughts about like, what's the desired outcomes, and then the actual like education institution. There's a lot of debate for how that's supposed to be today. I think when I put that down, it's more about putting ourselves in the mindset of wanting that. It's a little bit inspired by when we went to the board training recently, and the Cincinnati school, Jeb, something for his name, like really, he said something interesting while we were like just getting together. So that they started K through 8. They added K through 9 this year, 900 kids. it's a little bit of a different animal in a sense. But you know, when he said like what his goal was when he started, he's like,
Bless
you know,
you.
in however many
Bless
years,
you.
you know, he wants their school to be regarded as, you know, in the conversation he's today when he wants to displace the conversation of today where like the respective private schools in the area or whatever it is, and he wants the community to kind of view their Hillsdale school as the school, which I thought was like it was a very notable goal. You know, it's like and how he was kind of measuring like where he would like the school to go, and so kind of along those lines, I think it's one of those like, just me personally, whatever. It may sound like I think I might even put the region because they didn't want it to sound so crazy at first, but like I don't think it's like a crazy thing to say like we want to develop schools 6 years time, regarded as one of the top in the U.S. Like why is that crazy? I don't see that at all. Like, and I think we can. So it's sort of more like, well, you gotta start to actually decide that that's something that's like kind of what we want, and then think about how to get there. That's the background behind that.
That's fair.
I think sometimes we just, we do, like, just our conversations, you know, we like, and I know we're early and we need some sort of benchmark, but we too often compare ourselves to the average, as opposed to how can we get past that? And I know you have to get to average before you can get past it, but I feel like it's just sort of I'm probably repeating myself, but it's sort of a mindset, the way we approach things. And I think if we're keeping that in mind as a goal, however we decide to measure it, I think that'll help us in our thinking, with, you know, filter through with all of our thinking and our decisions.
Now, wonderful, good discussion so far. And again, with this, another piece that you can think about is, and maybe towards Margaret's point a little bit, is this, or a statement like this could become an overarching statement for everything that's done.
Yep.
So just putting up the very top, you know, taking it out, say, so that marketing isn't just focused on this and that's the only area that's focused on this, but that everything ties into it. If you put it up here, we put a line above it saying, you know, LCCA will be the premier school of its kind, wherever you want to say, and then dot, and colon, then everything here is leading towards that's our ultimate goal with everything that we're doing here.
Well, then isn't that a vision?
Certainly is. It certainly could be. You'd have to solidify that. We can put it there now, but I would still encourage you to go through a little bit of a process to solidify this is our vision, so to say. But is that it's your document. It's your material. So you tell us what to do.
Yeah.
I like the idea of it being an overarching, assumed outcome of the
Everything.
other 2 to 3 or however many strategic 6-year, 3-year, 1-year, 90-day things. I also have a little hesitation on the verbiage of that highlighted portion. I don't know that classical education actually is a new age of education. It's an old age. Yeah. So maybe we would.
Maybe we don't need
trim
that part.
Yeah,
Maybe we
I
just
agree.
say
Yeah, that
premier
wasn't-
school in the region.
So if
Yeah.
we just put up here, Dan, if we put up here at the top of what I'm hearing is, and I'm just going to try to repeat what I'm hearing. I'm going to always say what I'm hearing. If it's not, you got to push back. But if we put up at the top, LCA will be the premier school of its kind in
The region.
the region,
That's the overarching.
and then put that as
Yeah.
an overarching goal. Take it out of this 6-year target and put it as the overarching. Now, again, if there's not a 6-year target in enrollment growth that is board level, that's okay. All right? But there were these other pieces that we do believe from a poised planning process of the octane that leads towards it potentially fit here. So we're good with that? All right, and again, okay, we'll come back to vision. So, because, and so Dan, you can get rid of that 6, yeah, perfect. All right, so just staying in the red, again, things that we put in our marketing, student enrollment, etc. Dan went back to the challenges and opportunities. One of the challenges and opportunities that you had there dealt with vision. So Dan, you want to just walk through what you put in there?
Yeah, it's just by going and starting a committee to go and draft a clear vision statement that aligns with the mission, correlates with that. In order to go and achieve a 1-year goal on that, really it's just starting with that committee. And then we go and build it out. Kind of reverse engineered from this one, but it's making sure that in a year you have that vision statement firmly established, and that it correlates with that. And I also included if you do values, that's the other piece that we didn't hear, that you have defined values specified, so that would be a part of this one.
I see values here for the students, so to say. I would equate these to be values. Is that permeated from kindergarten through 12th grade?
It does.
Okay. Yep, so again, it's your document, it's your decision, but we encourage values. It just acts as a filter for you as a board. You say, here are, these are the student values, but you may adopt the same ones, I don't care. But again, it's yours. So, does this make sense? Is this part of what we were talking about? The challenges and opportunities? And what is a better word? So committee, you didn't like the word committee. So Dan, you didn't like Randy didn't like the word committee. We've got to make it so that you can just have one board, so that every time that a meeting happens, it doesn't have to be a quorum, it doesn't have to be, et cetera.
Team, working group.
What do you call it? What would you call it? Because you don't really have anything right now. And I don't want you to be afraid of that. I think you could and should have something. But working group? Okay. So we'll just go working group, the common terminology. And again, we'll come back to who's going to own this from a board standpoint and make sure it gets done. So
I'll just make one comment. I just didn't want committee because it's in the bylaws about the board establishing a committee, then you have to go through the whole meeting and notice process.
Oh, that's great comment.
Well, you still have to be cognizant of the number of people.
Yep. Yes, you still have to be cognizant that if you can have one or two, is that correct?
You can have no more than 2.
So you can have up to 2. So just keep, you know your guidelines, keep that in mind. I agree with that.
Well, until we get another board member,
Yeah.
then it can be 3.
So in the pipeline.
Now it's a team.
But
All right.
can I ask a question?
All right.
Just
Uh-oh.
can I ask a question? Just like clarification. I have a habit of these things, like sometimes throwing a wrench in the processes, trying to go around things, or just before going down.
Is there good news in this statement?
Maybe.
Okay.
I'm not sure. Like, let's fast forward like 4 hours and then another 4 hours on top of that, whatever. At the end of that, with it, like, what do we get to in the end? Like, our living document, like at the end, what is that? Like, what are we leaving here tomorrow? So it's like a series of 90-day plans and like
So it's
action
going to be a
items?
series of, if you have a 6-year goal, it's going to be a series of 6-year, 3-year, 1-year, and 90-day goals. That's what you're going to walk away with.
It's the
And-
GPS map,
Yep,
right?
it's the GPS map. And all the 90-day goals will have an individual owner that will be held accountable to that. These 90-day goals would show up, but we recommend these 90-day goals just get copied and pasted, however you want to do it, into your meeting agenda on a monthly basis. And then it's going to be in that time period, in that monthly agenda. So again, going with the whole process. So the end product of this is this document. The way that it lives then is you keep those 90-day goals in front of you at every meeting. You say, John, are you on target or off target with facility, whatever? And you're going to say on target.
And what's going, so I get that. So now for the list of goals, so what's going to be kind of the scope of each of the goals that end up on this?
Well, that's what we're going through right now.
Okay.
So that's for your determination. So if there are things written on here that we have that you have listed or anything that goes beyond the scope, get rid of it. If there's something missing, as Randy was saying, Randy said to me, what if something's missing? Well, then add it.
Okay.
It's your document. And again, remember, I'm going to keep saying this, I'm going to sound like a broken record, but living documents. So if in your next meeting, one of you come and say, you know what, and reflect this, we really missed this. Or you know what, I've been working on this, I took this on as a 90-day goal, thinking that, but I don't know that that's going to work. Then it's on the issues list, you talk about it, and you can either highlight it and put it in the parking lot, or you can say, we need to tweak this a little bit, as I've done some research on it. That's the beauty of that. Great question. Good. Other questions? And I don't mind the push. So you push back, push all those things. Don't hesitate. You're not going to offend me in any way, shape, or form. All right, we're good with this one.
Yes.
Now, again, right now, all we're leading back to is this is something that's gonna help us be the premier school. Okay, so now if we go down and put this in, it came up with the challenges and opportunities, pretty highly rated, okay? Challenges and opportunities is increased 8th grade retention into high school. Is that a board level piece? Is that an operational piece? What, Margaret's gonna make a comment, go ahead.
I consider it to be operational.
Yeah.
It is operational.
You don't see board level action that can change that. And also, I think 1 year from today, to make any kind of significant change to bring around something as established as an 8th grade melt across, that's common in all of schools. I think it's it seems to me a 1 year plan for that is not.
All right, let's keep hearing comments if there are other comments.
Is it the board, it's a board directive, but then operationally, we're delegating that or asking for that, and then the administration will come back with a plan for how we're going to do it, 'cause that's the way I would look at it.
So again, if the board is saying, this is something we're encouraging you to explore, work on it, et cetera, something like that, it's the board's support of that, or the operational team saying, we need board support. So if this is an agreed upon, area that you want focused, then the statement here would be something like, the board will support the plan developed by the operational team to increase 8th grade retention. Something to that effect. And again, that was very global, very general. Keep going, keep pushing back on it. This is a good discussion point to get us deeper into all this.
And I mean, like the 8th grade retention, like that's a lot to ask for. I know we're not wordsmithing here, but to ask for a plan to increase it over time, I think that's what the board would do, and then the administration would come up with that plan and present it to the board.
Margaret, you've got a look of.
So would they-
I'm contemplating. I feel like, I can't remember which of my reports recently, but we have spoken, addressed, shared the things that were implemented this year, the things that will be implemented next year, targeted at reducing the 8th grade amounts. But to Eric's point, that being sort of a K-12 institutional circumstance, we will always have a goal to healthy 8th grade retention. But I'm wondering at the stipulation to guarantee within a year, under our current circumstances especially, there's just a lot of things.
So maybe you need to define the word goal so that
Or does it
we're
need to
clear,
be
because
in this realm, I wonder? Or is this something we discuss?
See, I think like
So-
what Eric said before was, we need to figure out what our strengths are, what we can offer, and then, build up on those and make sure we're presenting those to students or prospective students. I feel like that's where the plan could come in. Here's what we could do with extracurriculars, here's what we could do with whatever, AP or honors or whatever. Here's sort of a longer term plan and work towards that plan, as opposed to saying we're going to increase retention in 1 year.
Yeah.
That sort of
Plan
control
in a year.
Yeah,
Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying that would be.
Plan in a year would be
Not
attainable.
retention, yeah. The
Which
results
makes
are gonna come years
significant
down the
shifts
road.
in that retention.
It's a long-term play.
3 year.
It's a long-term,
Right.
yeah.
Well, I think so, okay, so my view that I'm gonna be grounded in most things that I speak about is gonna be grounded in probably the same thing, and the whole idea of establishing what we wanna be when we grow up, and I don't think we know that yet, which would be a good thing to find. And I say that in the context of this, because for me, I don't view where we are in this melt thing or whatever it is as an issue yet, because I don't know why it's an issue, and I say it from this standpoint. It's everything is always relative, and I mean Hillsdale recognizes that all of its schools, it's you're supposed to develop the school for what is appropriate for your community. And I didn't know this until we went, but Hillsdale Academy, their K through 12 on-site academy, now after 35 years is 315 kids, of which the senior graduating class is like 25. So now they had an 8th grade melt issue in which they resolved however many long years ago, but this is a different animal. You're talking about a K through 12 private school, pay $6,000 a year, and heavily subsidized by Hillsdale. Their enrollment when you start in the lower grades tracks way less than the enrollment here. So it's one of those 8th grade melt is only a problem for us if we decided we need the high school to be a certain size and we're never getting there. Which means then you have to decide whether or not it's supposed to be that size to begin with. So right now, this past year we graduated, 15 kids, whatever it may be. And to say, I think there was some initial plan way back when we say we're going to get to 850 kids or whatever it is, we're going to have a high school graduating class of 50 or 75, whatever that number is. But the thing is, I don't know if we would all sit here today and say, that's what the goal should be. Is our high school supposed to be that? Is that even suitable for the community? It's not, in my mind, it's not crazy to think that in this community, what we want is we want average grade sizes from K through, say, 6, to pick a number, of 100 kid enrollments per class spread across an average of 4 classrooms, and then purposely assume that we're going to have attrition going from 8th to 9th grade to then get to a high school that's 25 kids per class, because we've profiled the objective of the high school is for kids to come out of it looking like whatever it is that we decide to come out of it, and it's perfectly appropriate. So my point is I don't see we actually have a problem. I think it's more we should decide as to what the biggest thing in my mind when we look at this, we should decide spend time thinking about what that stuff should be. Because frankly, I don't really know.
So here you go, this is perfect. I love the discussion from all of you. And this is why we're going to let you go at times, or we're going to rein you back in. But this gets us to that ultimate point, that if you as a collective, if the board with, again, all of you here today say, and that's why we always kind of encourage you, I shouldn't kind of, but we encourage you, what's the 6-year target? So if you're keeping this category of enrollment, if enrollment growth is important to you all and a desired outcome in the next 6 years, then you should put a figure out here. And again, it's going to be somewhat arbitrary. You're not basing that figure today on any defined research, but that will come as you back build that. So if you say, and again, I saw that number come up a couple of times, 850, 850, 850. If you say in 6 years we want to be a campus of 850 students, kindergarten through 12th grade, then you put that out there at 6 years. Then in 3 years, you can still put a number. You can say, well, in 3, what are you at right now?
600, give or take.
Okay, so this is a great example. So 600, give or take. So again, in 3 years, if you say, we want to grow in the right way, and we want to do this in 3 years, we want to be at 700.
Which in our current facilities is impossible.
Okay, yep, we're going to have to address that. We're going to have to address that. But just follow, I'm just going pattern here.
I'm with you.
I'm just going pattern. So if you said 850, and then in 3 years, you want to be at 700, which is not an unreasonable stretch from 600. I'll talk a little bit more about that. But then right to John's point, then the 1-year plan is you have to then have a plan developed for the growth, for targeted growth for our school, which gets to his. Where do we really want to go? Is it a focus on 8th grade to 9th grade, or is the focus on bringing in larger kindergartens and having 5 kindergarten classes in 3 years? And so that's where the initial plan would come in, and then in 90 days again, you're going to have your enrollment growth working group established to begin to explore exactly what he's saying. Go ahead, please, Randy.
No, sorry, but
I was just reading the look on your face, so I do that. If I call on you accidentally, I don't care, but, and it's like an auction too, so if you move or sneeze, I usually will call on you, so go ahead,
I was going
Randy.
to say the 8th grade retention, I think it came in because that was a specific thing cited in surveys about the 8th grade offering and the retention in the 8th grade. So I think that's why that one
Yep.
was specifically called.
Absolutely, nothing wrong with that 8th grade piece, but that would be part of the 1 year, that would be a piece of the 1 year. And again, this is where terminology comes in, because you can have development for financial, you can have development for student growth. okay, whatever terminology you want to do, but that could be one out of 6 pieces that you're putting into the plan to facilitate growth to 850.
So,
But you don't know that today, that's your priority.
So,
And as a
yeah.
matter of fact, you may come back out of it after you put the plan together in a year that may not be. That you're gonna have bigger bang for your buck with whatever. Go ahead, somebody was saying something.
well, I was, when I talked with Tim, the individual helping us raise money, the 850 came up and he's like, do you think that's an appropriate number? And I said, well, I don't know where that came from. It's like, I need the context for
Capacity,
it.
right? Isn't that the physical capacity?
No, the target of 850 K-12 students is what Hillsdale would say
Oh.
is the
Okay,
typical average ideal
okay.
within their network. So when they take on a group of people who
Yeah.
want to start up a school, they advise that a target of 850 is reasonable. Not all of the schools hit that, and some of the schools exceed that, depending on demographic, geographical location,
Mhm.
etc. But that is an original historical benchmark, if you will, of a Hillsdale college member school.
Okay. And we're how many right now? 6?
600.
600-ish.
Capacity at
That's amazing, actually.
both buildings is
I would say we have room for
13 more.
20 more.
Okay.
We're
to set
like-
these goals, you have to keep the context.
Right,
reading it.
this
Yeah.
is why 3 years and 6 years is hard to do, because we are limited in current facilities.
But
I
it's
think-
fluid and could change if we
Yeah.
end up getting a one site, like,
Right,
you know, so I
so
think
maybe,
we just have to be cognizant that it can change or would need to change with
Yeah,
extent.
and you can put that in parentheses behind whatever goal you put up there, dependent upon facility.
Yeah.
yeah.
That's fine.
I mean, do we want to be 850 students? Like, is that our goal, that we would have more uniformity, K through 12?
Our sweet spot might be 700. I don't know. Like, you
Yeah.
know, that's where,
I suppose it might take a few more years of
Right.
historical data on what kind of a wait list we carry. You know, we were booming right after
Yeah.
COVID, right? Everybody wanted a school that wasn't gonna make their kids wear masks. So we had an incredible wait list. That was one of the elements, I think, that fueled that.
Uh-huh.
We've leveled out a little bit, right? Because we've tapped into the community, and our wait list, as it should be, has, as we've grown, also opened additional sections per
Mhm.
grade level, taken as many off the wait list as we possibly can, et cetera, et cetera. Maybe we need just a greater sense of the demand within our reasonable geographical scope to understand
Yeah.
how in demand are we, and therefore how big should we
All right.
become?
So this is great. So with this, what again, we would encourage, and I love that there is some research behind the 850 number, at least as a Hillsdale number, and then maybe Dan can type that in there, Hillsdale, what did you call it, the Hillsdale?
Their average ideal, I think.
So 850 Hillsdale average ideal. And I think we need to keep in mind that this is a Hillsdale school,
Mhm.
okay? So it's not necessarily, it's not a parent-run school. Necessarily, this is what I was over here, it's not, a parent-run school wasn't demanded by the parent in the community school. It is a Hillsdale school that was planted in this community to serve the parents as such. Now, again, I'm not saying we don't want parent engagement and things like that, there's just a little bit of a nuance there with that. But if we become that, then we just put 700 dependent upon campus. Then part of the 1-year plan, in my opinion, and what I'm hearing, is in 1 year, you have a enrollment growth development plan. That's really it. You have an enrollment growth development plan, which, in my opinion, now the team, I don't want to dictate today, so I don't want to get granular, but the team would have in there, in my opinion, what I'm hearing is, from you, what is your ideal? Some research done on that. Now, it may not be fully, research, so and when you get to 1 year, we have a plan, but now our 2-year, our next 1-year plan is to refine, plan, and implement phase 1. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Okay, so in here, again, enrollment growth development plan, you develop that plan. And it's gonna have components that we think are growth, demographic pieces that we've looked at, what might be our ideal. And then year 2, again, if you've got that in place, then year 2 is gonna be carry out phase 1 of this plan. leading to year 3, hopefully 700. And now you might have to tweak 700 because you realize that it's not 700 anymore, it's 2,000. Or you might tweak it and say,
Just give
now
Mark a
again,
heart attack.
with most groups, I'm going to be
Don't
very
kill our
honest.
leader.
Being very honest with you, most groups that have a plan that actually carry out 99, they usually don't backtrack on numbers. The numbers usually increase. I can give a very clear example of this. Kettle Moraine Lutheran High School, which we've intimately worked with, I don't know, 6 years now again?
That's in a different state, right?
Nope.
No? Right here?
Jackson. Yeah, Jackson,
Oh, yeah.
which you might think is a different state.
Yes.
No, but again.
Auditor?
It's a
What?
private school.
Yeah, it is a private school, private Lutheran school. And again, with that school, when we started with them, they were at like 420 students. And 6 years ago, they put a goal out there that in 10 years, so they went with a 10-year target, that in 10 years, it'd be 800 plus students. Oh, you should have heard the outcry in the room. Well, there's no way, there's no way, there's no way. Well, now they're basically 5 years into the plan, and they're over 700. They're over 700 already.
They built a new gym or something, right?
They've got they are in the process of, so first of all, they took on a $15 million capital campaign. So they are now building all of that, $15 million capital campaign that became a part of this because they developed this plan and they started following through on it. I mean, to me, they're almost the mirror image of you 5 years ago. I do see so many similarities, and they're very similar curriculum model, very similar everything. And 5 years ago, they were pretty stagnant at about 430-ish, with not a lot of sight. And I'm not saying anyone here doesn't have a lot of sight. You've gone through 4 years of tremendous growth and great things. But they did this, and that's where they are today now. They're coming in with record enrollment this coming year, a little over 700 students. They've broken ground, they're building all this stuff, $15 million capital campaign that they started, by the way, a year and a half ago. And they already have raised, well, I think they raised 9 and they borrowed, basically are borrowing 5 to 6. But they're still raising money towards it. Go ahead, sorry.
Who's their fundraiser?
I just have a question for you, and this is a question I know we don't want to get into the details, so we can get to say whatever we want, but like, with the number of students, like when I thought about the number of students, if we want to provide a quality education and let parents know here's what classical education is, then we sort of do that the best we can and let that number fall wherever it is, since it's a specialized area. But if we put a number out there, then we're like targeting like this, let's take these students, which sort of discourages you from maybe making these things clear up front. Here's what it is, and we know that's going to eliminate some people, making sure we have the right person. So that's why I thought like the premier school, that's what we want to be, and if that number is 600 or
Yep.
1,400, then that's where it is.
Yeah, and I still go back to that, that we're gonna be the premier school. So as you're working on this, as you develop this plan, that's gotta be one of the questions, is how do we become a premier school where we don't lose our culture, we don't lose our values, our virtues, et cetera, as we move forward, and so those numbers may be tweaked. The numbers I would just put there as arbitrary, although I like the 850 because there is a little bit of research behind it, but you can tweak those as you go along, Randy, because more important is keeping you at the center of who you are.
That was sort of my question, and I totally think we can do 850 or more if we do it right, but I just, like, that's, like having that number there, you're saying that's, from your experience, a better way to do it rather than have something more nebulous as a goal.
Yep.
Even though you know that it may or may not be the right thing.
That is correct. Yep, we worked with a group that put out 500, they are now over 3,000. And it changed in 1 year, just because of doing some of the research behind it. Go ahead, sorry.
Some of the research that we're doing with Clifton Larson Allen as well
Yep.
is helping us to know appropriate enrollment targets, because our financial viability is our number, right? So if we're gonna run a capital campaign or seek financing through a financial institution for underwriting or whatnot, we have to know what we can afford. We do have to have a number, but to John's point, is it 850 because that's what Hillsdale says we should target? Not if our community can't sustain that number, right? Because then we'll be financially in the hole if we're not hitting the target that we're
Exactly.
making plans off of. So I don't know if like the 90-day plan on this top row that we're talking about right now puts a board member in contact with Clifton, Larson, Allen. Maybe it would be John because it is dependent on one campus progression, but to get a sense of what our financial forecasting dictates our enrollment should be once we're in a single campus in order to sustain the financing that it will take to pay for that one campus project. You know, it's all woven together. So maybe the 90-day plan is
It's all on you.
to engage
All on you.
board representation with Clifton, Larson, Allen
Yeah.
for full scope understanding of
What's the
financial enrollment connections.
Mhm.
Which would then help us to understand what our growth needs to be year over year, also taking into account our one campus target, but then also helping us to determine what our full institutional target and capacity should and could be. Which, again, I think conservatively speaking, we build the campus for a number that we know we can afford, and that is what dictates our capacity, which then affects how many sit on our wait list.
Yeah.
You know, it just is all so woven together. But I do think
That's true.
that's where we probably should start.
Well, I think that makes a lot of, and, you know, heads up, mindful always is a practical reality. It's definitely very key. I think, but I do think a lot of, so with that, and I'll circle back to that sec, but I think the thing that is critical and will be productive is, I do think all this kind of stems down to, all right, my mind when we, like, to come up with things that are tangible for things to work towards, I think this all kind of boils down to us deciding, honestly, like targeted profile of like matriculating student, for example. And like that answer is like, there's a multitude for that answer, I think. Because like from all these things, like you want to go raise money, if you want to go raise money from big check donors, you got to paint the picture of like what that legacy is. You know, I give this example, the school that I went to, it's like, you know, again, they've gone down the path like wokeism, they're a leader in like wokeism crazy. That being said, the curriculum and the things that they're doing, they put students on the leading edge. Big check donor goes in there, like, why do they continue to raise tens of millions of dollars every year? Because you walk in there, you know, not that you believe, you know that this school is producing a next president of the United States. You know this school is producing a kid that's going to cure cancer. This is what you know. We're not going to get there. That's not the point. But the point of like where we are is a stage to say like, this is what we target, whatever that may be. So, but I think it does come, like, for example, like when it comes to the enrollment question, like, I think it's always important to understand like your kind of your total addressable market and like how those numbers boil down to. But like, for example, like if you told me in 5 years, so I think this past year was an extraordinary success. I mean, how many kids got into Hillsdale? Like 2, 3, 4, I mean, it was more than that are actually going.
I think it's 3, but I might
yeah.
only be 2.
We
I
got
mean-
accepted.
We got accepted, but only one is going.
Only one.
Yeah, but out of like a graduating class of 16 or however many is, and like the first graduating class, that's an amazing success. It's an incredible story. Like you got kids that got like matriculated the first senior graduating class into the school to which the curriculum is modeled after. That's awesome. Now, if you told me like 5 years from now, if we just got 2 kids in the Hillsdale out of a graduating class of 20, I'm actually not really upset about only having a graduating class of 20. But I'm probably going to be upset about having only 2 kids that got into Hillsdale. That's just me. Others can say like that's fine too, and it's just a matter of like defining like what that is. Because I think there's a part like every like you can segment anything into infinite infinite pieces, and within every piece you have a bell curve. Like you can take it and you can take like the outside, you know, the right side of you take this set. And you take the bell curve of here, you're going to work with here. Within here, you can create another bell curve of where people land. And I think some of it is like, if we can figure out like where we want to be, and then we kind of create, that's how you, I think, create the goals and the objectives. Like that, and that's how we can get to like tangible things. Because again, like right now, I don't know what. Like you can tell me like, you know, how big do we want to be? I have no idea.
So maybe in this row, we don't have a 3-year and a 6-year goal yet, but in the 90-day, we're good. And then in the 1 year, that development plan determines the 3-year, 6-year.
Yeah, sure.
So we don't have to set it now.
Yep, and my encouragement would be, perfect, that's exactly how this will work. But my encouragement would be, leave these here knowing that they're gonna change.
Okay.
That would be my encouragement.
Great.
Those are arbitrary, numbers there. But the key is exactly what John said, exactly what you agreed to, is what is this 1-year piece gonna tell us?
Mhm.
Where's our growth gonna come from? Or at least what is the next step? Because you got another year before the 3-year
Yeah.
to determine, again, the other intricate nuances that are gonna go into this. But if you don't start working on this now, see, what happens to most groups is you talk about, and then a year later, like, anybody work on that?
So Dan, I
It
think
looks
it
wrong.
is okay for that 90, yeah.
Does that make sense? These are gonna be dependent upon, again, coming through, what does this say? So these numbers are gonna change, but at least what we would encourage you to think about is that we're looking at some type of number, because Clifton Larson Allen needs numbers. You need numbers. I would not be doing my job if I didn't tell you, as a charter school, that you've gotta talk about numbers. Now, I don't know, those numbers could be, like you said, 20 in every graduating class, that's fine, if that's what but then you've got to design everything based upon that, because that's the model we want.
I think another piece in this, somewhere probably in the 90-day to the 1 year, would be for everybody to understand actual enrollment, which sounds silly, but, because we're not a private school, so just that there's an understanding that, we're not doing placement testing to get students into the school. So it's on lottery basis, and you have, parents and, signing up and coming to it as being a public school. So it's just kind of the nuance of being a nonprofit school, yet a public school. And then that your numbers and the people that you're accepting into whatever grade level, it's based on the numbers who apply, who's there. And then as a school, the school is creating the faculty, the staff to meet the needs of those kids. We can't turn people away unless we don't have a seat for them to be in. So it's a critical piece when you're looking at the overall number of the students of where you want to be, whether you're in one campus or 2 campus. And some of that's not predictable. So probably be a challenge on our little challenge list, but.
So it's creating an education awareness of our structure and limits or abilities, and then using that to help set the growth plan, because we have to abide by certain rules.
So I would put that simultaneous, Dan, what I'm hearing is and you were typing that, a simultaneous 90-day goal to engage board representative with Clifton Larson Allen. Simultaneous goal would be, and probably Laura, you're gonna have to own this one potentially, or whoever's here. But really understand dynamics of enrollment process in a Wisconsin charter school, basically is what you're saying.
Sorry, Clifton Larson, what do they do exactly? Is it just like financial consulting? Is it like market surveying? Is it?
Larson Allen is a CPA firm that does public accounting.
Okay,
all
so
kinds of audit.
we're just talking about
And so
financial.
the audit, and then
Financial
they have,
forecasting.
they have different departments, within their organization, and one of which is, which we have partnered with in this particular case with the financial model for the One Campus project and capital campaign and those types of things.
That's part of their consulting arm, one of the specialties within the
Yeah.
consulting arm, CLA.
But so are they trying to find, like, so are they doing something, for example, like, let's say we want to target 850 kid enrollment and we are in a community constituency that kind of has whatever K through 12 population of pick a large number, and there are however many school districts of which, let's say it's like if we were trying to figure out, like, within our community, is there a bias towards schools that have a really strong athletic program? And then they go and like rip apart the numbers and figure, are they that type of firm, or are they just like, you give them numbers and then they figure out projections?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
We have had a market analysis done by, yeah, was that 2 years ago?
True.
Yeah,
That was
Triumph,
last
was
year.
it? Yeah, Triumph 3.
Okay.
So we have some sense of that. Can I do need to wordsmith one thing.
Yeah.
Lottery basis being a nonprofit,
Oh,
but also a public. You gotta take out the word not. There you go, also. We're nonprofit, but also a public school. rather
Okay.
than-
yeah, I'm just throwing notes
Yeah,
down,
no,
so
I just wanted
if
to
you want me
clarify.
to
No, that's good, that's good.
keep it as is, or,
Teacher in you.
Yeah.
So, so with Dan's just gonna type stuff, and so he's just gonna type what he hears, and then we're gonna put it into a statement,
Yeah,
so.
okay.
So right now, I think the singular statement, so he just had these as notes,
Okay,
but right now, what I'm hearing as a 90-day goal is that there needs to be an understanding of the dynamics of the enrollment process.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what I heard?
Yeah.
Well, and Lori, like what you said about it not being predictable, right? Because I wonder if we had a one campus location, would that draw new families, something new, exciting, kind of that shiny new school? You know, parents who have had their kids on the wait list before weren't offered a seat, or one sibling was offered. Knowing that we could be 850, would they be more likely to reapply? Are parents not applying year after year because it's like, well, why even bother? Because we didn't get in,
Yeah.
or we didn't get all of our kids in, so we're not going to send anybody.
Right.
And so with it, again, it's a great comment now, and again, how I would hear that, so this is what groups want to do, and this is not offensive, this is good, but we're getting into a little bit of the granular pieces that have to come out into this one-year piece, because, so I would push back on Lori's statement saying not predictable, only from this standpoint. I understand what you're saying, is that if you, in this plan, say, we want a heavy basis and emphasis on 5 kindergartens, and we're good with 20, 12th graders. Well, then you can make that a little bit more predictable by marketing people that you would hire to say, here's our target market. It's not going to be perfectly predictable, if a marketing firm goes, yeah, we'll get you 100 kindergartners, that'd be amazing, but I doubt, nobody is ever that good. Kind of thing. But does that make sense? So it can become a little bit more targeted, maybe not still 100% predictable, but targeted. Because you are right, there are the nuances of the lottery basis. You are a public school. You cannot deny anyone unless, like you said, for very specific reasons of you don't have a seat for them. Is this all making sense, team?
Yeah.
This is great. So I love it. This to me, with understanding that, and can we get rid of this stuff then? You don't need that?
Right.
Okay, so Dan just types stuff in so he remembers in case of, so what we got is we've got now a 6-year plan that goes under, and again, I think it fits. This is a category of kind of marketing, enrollment, growth, but you really can't do much with it until you determine where you want to go, so we got to have a plan, so now we're good. Now in this plan might be the 8th grade retention, might be this, might come out of it, that's our best area. Still, are we good there, team?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so now going back to Alan's comment of less is more, we can get rid of this now, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And then, I want to finish a little bit of the red here, and then we're going to get into some of this. But this one, somebody put in the LCCA community will be laser focused on and supportive of its mission. The school will have a significant wait list for all grades. That really goes into here, right? Do we really want a wait list for all grades? Do we really want it? That's going to come through this plan, right?
Yep.
So that can go away for now. We've got
Yeah.
the vision piece is coming back to us. To provide increased academic and extracurricular programs to students as enrollment grows over the years. That's more operational.
Yes.
I'm not saying that the board couldn't suggest that or say, show us your plan for additions of, sports programs or whatever it would be, or, I'm not saying that. Do you need anything in here right now on that? And again, this was written by someone as a bigger, hairy, audacious goal, behavior, etc.
I appreciate the last phrase in that, ultimately in the one campus location, and so I see that as dependent upon when the one campus location is at least a clearer picture. So I think that.
So basically keep that in mind. So Dan,
I think it's operational and dependent on context, so I'm not sure if it belongs.
so maybe if we can move that down to the capital campaign section for now,
Yeah.
and we'll come back to that.
Okay.
So if we're looking at this as a team in here, and again, go with Alan's comment, less is more, I think we've done a pretty good job of breaking this down to basically saying, under enrollment growth, because enrollment growth only comes through some type of marketing, whether it be word of mouth, this, that, and I'm using that term loosely. But under that enrollment growth, the red, I've got to let Dan do this work. I always get like 12 steps out of Dan, and then he does it afterwards. Stop. He's got the hardest job in the room right now, so we'll take him part. Yeah, awkwardly stare at Dan, make him feel uncomfortable. That's beautiful. And somebody's like, "You hit the wrong key," because that's what we're all thinking. Not me, because I'm terrible at Excel. But if we go back up to the red, we have now basically taken the red to the fact that we've got to clarify our vision. Good. We've clarified it to these numbers just take as placeholders. We want enrollment growth of some kind. Potential, and it may be, we don't want, depending on the site that you find, if the site is beautiful, wonderful, and you're going to fill it with 450 students, I don't know that would be good or not, but again, you could redetermine that. But so we've got that, and then we've got this understanding dynamics, so as this group is moving forward, they have some of that backbone. We good there, team?
Yes.
Does that make sense? All right, let's take 5 minutes, go stretch, come back, we're going to go into the next section. Good work.